We can be seated. Thank you. Esteemed guest, Minister, Deputy Minister, you are most welcome. We are about to start. I'm going to request you to rise and observe the national anthem protocols. We know that, but we need to take off our hats, and we know the salute, right? All of us, we are aspiring to be the president, our hands, and can we please limit the movement? Can we rise? May we rise, colleagues? And national anthem, please. I'm going to facilitate the first part of the program. I am going to call upon Professor van der Lede to officially welcome us to the institution. Thank you. Over to you.
Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Acting Dean of the Faculty of Law at UJ, and my name is Kathleen van der Linde. The Vice-Chancellor and Principal, Professor Letlokwa George Mpedi, has asked me to convey his apology. He regrets that prior commitments prevent him from standing here this morning. It is a great honor to welcome you all to this important engagement between government and civil society here on the Soweto campus of the University of Johannesburg. You might have noticed that UJ is celebrating its 20th birthday this year, and we are very glad to welcome you in this 20-year celebration year of the university. It was formed in 2005 as part of the post-apartheid transformation of South Africa's higher education landscape. In just 2 decades, the university has emerged as a beacon of academic excellence and innovation, and has achieved remarkable milestones, including securing prominent positions in global university rankings, which are a testament to its commitment to quality education and research. The Faculty of Law fully subscribes to the university's dedication to driving sustainable development and having societal impact. And of course, the Faculty of Law is particularly passionate about access to justice. You have come together with a shared commitment to one of the most fundamental pillars of any society, justice. Today you gather to address a topic that's both timeless and very urgent, improving access to justice for all South Africans. The role of justice in our society cannot be overstated. It is the foundation of fairness, of accountability, and of course the fundamental constitutional value of human dignity. It is thus apt that you have scheduled this event at the start of Human Rights Month. We know that access to justice remains a challenge for many in South Africa, many of the marginalized and vulnerable communities who often find themselves on the periphery of the legal system. Where it's due to financial barriers, lack of awareness, geographic constraints, or systemic inequalities rife in South Africa, too many still face obstacles in seeking redress and protection under the law. Human rights can only serve their purpose if they can be effectively enjoyed and enforced through the justice system. And this engagement today is an opportunity to bridge the gap between those who create the justice structures and policies and those who are directly impacted by them. The government has a crucial role in ensuring that the justice system is not only efficient, but also inclusive and accessible. However, civil society organizations bring valuable insights, expertise, and the lived experiences of individuals who interact with the system daily. Together, we can identify the challenges, explore innovative solutions, and work toward a more equitable justice system for all. As you embark on today's dialogue, let us keep in mind that the goal is not just to identify current barriers to justice, but to engage in discussions on practical, sustainable solutions. The conversations and ideas that emerge from this engagement have the potential to shape policies, programs, and initiatives that will have a lasting impact on the lives of countless South Africans. By working together, government, civil society, and communities, we can pave the way for a future where justice is accessible, equitable, and truly transformative. I wish you insightful engagement and discussions, and trust that strong collaborative efforts will follow from today's event. Thank you for your dedication and commitment to improving access to justice for all.
Thank you a lot, Prof. van der Linde. I'm sure you heard that this year marks the 20th anniversary of the institution, and one of the fundamental rights enshrined in our constitution is the right to education. So there are young people, I'm sure, in the crowd who are more than welcome to join this excellent institution. Without any further ado, colleagues, let me introduce myself. My name is Topsi Musi. I couldn't do that, and I will be facilitating this first part of the program. I would also like to acknowledge our sign language interpreters. Is Ms. Nomusa Kubeka, Mr. Nkosinati Kubeka, Nomaswazi, Shongwe, and Katlego Tani. So they'll be rotating because we tried as much as possible to make sure that this engagement is inclusive by also extending it to a lot of the vulnerable groups in our society. Thank you very much. I'm going to call upon the podium the Director General for the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, Advocate D. Mashabani, to come to the podium and do the purpose of today's engagement. Over to you, Doc. I saw a hand. Yes, ma'am. Okay. We know that, and my sincere apologies. We use them, they. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Program Director. And thank you very much for raising that, because I was going to make the same mistake. So otherwise now I'll say, good morning. Afshe, Dumelang, Legai. Yes, so thank you very much for raising that. We were all going to make that same mistake. My name is Dr. Shabani. I'm the Director General of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. I'm here to acknowledge all of you being here. But first and foremost, let me mention to you, we have the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development in our midst, Minister Mmamoloko Kubayi. We also have the Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Mr. Andres Nell. We have senior managers from the department. We also have senior managers from the provincial government here. Some of them will do the program, and leaders from the local sphere of government, and other representatives. And we also here have invited different faith-based organizations, the legal fraternity, the academia, constitutional bodies, particularly Chapter 9 and Chapter 10. We have the members of the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster. We have a wide range of civil society and non-governmental organizations working in different areas on matters of disability, LGBTQI, children, the elderly, human rights advocate, social justice, social cohesion advocates. So different formations, and of course, being in an academic institution, the students in our midst. We are here as an outreach, part of an outreach program of the minister in the department to engage with the community about the work of the department. The mandate of the department is mainly around access to justice, and the constitutional development part being the custodian of the Constitution of the Republic. So we have a responsibility for the deepening of the culture of constitutionalism, promotion and protection of human rights, and the rule of law, but mainly the management of the framework for an effective and efficient and responsive justice system, both civil and criminal. So the purpose of this engagement with you as members of the community as South Africans is to share with you what the department does, including the plans broadly into this current term, the 7th administration, and also to get your views about how you experience access to justice, your experience about the promotion and protection of human rights. Equally so, today being the end of February, the next month, as you will know, is a Human Rights Month. The 21st of March is a Human Rights Day, but the entire month of March is a Human Rights Month. So today, this event will also mark the launch of the Human Rights Month. One other part that we normally don't recognize is that the 21st of March is not only a Human Rights Day. UN has declared the 21st of March an International Day Against Racial Discrimination. And that was done by the General Assembly of the UN in honor of South Africa after the Sharpeville massacre. So we must always remember that as much as we have it as a Human Rights Month, but it's equally in terms of the UN calendar, the 21st becomes the International Day Against Racial Discrimination. That's why in March as well, in the second or third week, we have a week that we call an anti-racism. So we undertake activities and programs that seek to promote activities towards the elimination of racism. So you are welcome to this engagement. The items, as you will see in the program, are meant and are focused on dealing with issues of justice, are part of your major concerns and part of the reason why you are here, but also equally to assist us to get a feedback from you and get views on how we can improve access to justice as well as the protection and promotion of human rights. So welcome to the Imbizo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DG. I think every month provides an opportunity for us to embrace our constitutional rights. Last week, Friday, it was we were commemorating or celebrating International Mother Language. So, and tomorrow, as DG indicated, we're starting with the Human Rights Month. I am going to. You will note that on the program, there are items. So your program will not look like mine, but we'll get to the end of it. So some items might be shifted, but will, as indicated, achieve what we are here for. So it's because the MEC Chilwani will not be able to join us as soon as the HOD for the same Department of Education, Sports, Arts and Culture arrives, then we'll give him the opportunity to render the message of support and as well as the Executive Mayor. So I am going now to item number 5 on your program, which is the outlining of the MTDP priorities for the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. And I will ask our Deputy Minister, Mr. Andrew Snell, to come to the podium. Over to you, sir.
Program Director, thank you. My name is Andre Snell. I'm the Deputy Minister for Justice and Constitutional Development. It's a great pleasure to be here today, to be part of very vibrant engagement. And I would like to again thank the Minister, Minister Mmamoloko Kubayi, for taking this wonderful initiative so early in her term of office as the Minister of Justice. She is a very experienced leader in government. She's served in 7 portfolios. She and I have worked closely together both in Parliament and in other areas. So it's a great pleasure to share this platform with her under her leadership. Also thank you to the Director General and the staff of the department for assisting in bringing us all together. But I think the most important salutation is to everyone who's here, together to discuss, to reflect on both the past, but more importantly, to reflect on the future and how together we work to build that future. I'm not a big person of protocol, so I'm not going to inflict pain on your ears by repetitively repeating the same salutation that I think has been well done by the program director. I'm also not going to fall into the trap that others have warned us again, so I will just greet everyone and say, comrades and friends, thank you very much for being here, and we look forward to the dialogue. Today we're launching Human Rights Month. We do so here in Soweto. This is not an accident. Soweto is synonymous with the struggle against apartheid and the struggle for justice. It's synonymous with the proud spirit of resistance by the people of South Africa. It's not from yesterday that the people of South Africa have stood firm and said, as the President said in the State of the Nation address 2 weeks ago, we will not be bullied. We will not be oppressed. We are a people of peace, of dignity, of freedom. Soweto exemplifies both the worst and the best in our history. 70 years ago, on the 9th of February 1955, 2,000 policemen, armed with guns, rifles, and knobkerries, forcibly removed the first group of black families from Sophiatown to Meadowlands. It's ironic that the 70th anniversary of the forced removal of people from Sophiatown coincides also with the 70th anniversary of the adoption of the Freedom Charter on the 26th of June 1955 in Kliptown. This was a calculated attempt to break the spirit of the people, to erode their culture, their values, to demean and degrade them. But here we stand 70 years later, 30 years after our democratic breakthrough in 1994, and we can say proudly that through united action, the people of South Africa defeated apartheid. We put in place a constitution and a democracy that have dealt firmly with the attempts of the apartheid regime. We also still stand united in dealing with the legacy of that terrible chapter of history, which sadly still remains very much part of our day-to-day lives, and we'll come back to that. But I think also importantly, that based on our own experience of resistance to oppression, that spirit of solidarity continues to live in the hearts and the minds of all of us South Africans as we stand with the people of Palestine against the attempts by the Israeli regime to perpetrate genocide on them. Our country has transitioned from a past that was based on division. Division on the basis of race, division on the basis of class, and on the basis of gender. The freedoms that we enjoy today have come at a tremendous cost, both in terms of lives, liberty, and dignity that was sacrificed in that struggle. Regrettably, the achievements of the past 30 years of democracy have not eradicated all of those challenges. We still sit with the enduring legacy of apartheid. And it's not an abstract thing. So to those who say that we must forget about the past and move on, we can't forget about the past when the past is still living in the present with us day to day, when the places that we live are still separated by race, maybe not legally, but practically. We can't forget about the past when every day women and men have to wake up at 3:30 or 4 in the morning and travel 4 hours to get to work, and only come back when their children have long gone to bed. We can't say that we must forget about the past when we have the highest unemployment rate in the world, and that unemployment rate disproportionately affects young people, the very same young people who were at the forefront of the 1976 uprising. So I think much as we have made huge strides, and I think the other negative tendency that we must stand firm and combat, the one is saying, let's forget about the past and just move on. The other equally wrong and negative tendency is to say nothing has changed. And some take it even a step further to say not only has nothing changed, but in fact, life was better then than it is now. Now, that is an insult to each and every South African who suffered under apartheid. It's an insult to the dignity of those who suffered tremendous human rights abuses in that struggle. So the task that I've been given here today is just to share very briefly what it is that the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development is doing about these things that we've spoken about. Now, government has adopted a medium-term development program. That medium-term development program is based on the manifestos of the different political parties that contested the elections in 2024. I think, as we all know, the people of South Africa spoke. They spoke loudly and they spoke clearly, and that they didn't give any single political party an outright majority to govern. For those of us who are proud members of the parties to which we belong, it's very, very sad, and we take that as a wake-up call, that we really need to do introspection, and we need to act upon that message which the people of South Africa have given us, to say why they don't have confidence to give us a majority. But the fact of the matter is that the people have spoken, and we've listened. And for that reason, those parties came together, they negotiated, they came up with a government of national unity statement of intent, and all of those manifestos were brought together and put into a medium-term development program. That medium-term development program is consistent with our National Development Plan, Vision 2030, and the three priorities of that medium-term development program are firstly, and an apex priority, is firstly to transform our economy to ensure that we have inclusive economic growth. And inclusive economic growth, amongst others, or primarily, to ensure that our country creates jobs. That is the biggest concern that all South Africans have. The second priority is how we tackle poverty and the rising cost of living. That is the thing that eats away at each and every one of us in our society, where month after month after month, the little money that we have buys less food, less transport, less electricity, less fuel, less education. The third priority is building a capable, ethical, developmental state. And I'll come back especially to that last priority. So most of what the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development does is in relation to that last priority, priority 3, of building a capable, ethical and developmental state. But it's not limited to that, because we need to understand the interrelationship between those different priorities. You cannot divorce the quest to build a capable, ethical, developmental state from the priority of ensuring inclusive economic growth and the creation of jobs. If we don't create an environment in which citizens are safe and feel safe, they won't be able to participate effectively in the economy. Those entrepreneurs who want to start small businesses, who are then confronted by construction mafia, who won't be able to make progress, won't be able to build their businesses, won't be able to create wealth and to create employment. Similarly, a state that is corrupt and that is constantly asking for extra taxes under the table won't be able to promote that inclusive economic growth and job creation. So the department's focus is primarily on that third priority of building a capable and ethical state, but we're very mindful that as the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development and the broader justice, crime prevention and security cluster, that we have a significant contribution to make to inclusive economic growth and job creation, and to fighting poverty and the rising cost of living. And that second priority around fighting poverty and the rising cost of living, I think is especially relevant for this conversation today, because there are many NGOs and community-based organizations that exactly mobilize around that, and that take, and in Chapter 9 institutions, that are seized with issues of poverty and the rising cost of living. So, what is the department doing? Firstly, we are strengthening the criminal justice value chain by creating a modernized criminal justice system. We're doing that both in terms of reviewing the existing legislation like the Criminal Procedure Act, but also putting in place technological ICT solutions to make sure that the police can communicate effectively with the National Prosecuting Authority, with Legal Aid South Africa, all of those with the courts, and ultimately with correctional services and home affairs. We've committed ourselves, we vowed that never and never again will we have the Tauter scenario, where someone can come into the criminal justice system unknown, go through that whole system, up to the point of being in correctional services, and we still don't actually know who that person is. That just can't be. Secondly, it's to create increased safety in the community, in particular for women and for children. It's to increase the conviction rate for sexual offences and to expand the number and the quality of our Tutuzela care centres. During this year, we're aiming to, in the medium-term development program, we're aiming to increase the number of Tutuzela care centres from 64 to 74. And we're also looking in the next 5 years to establish a further 35 sexual offences courts. Cumulatively, we hope that those efforts will also reduce the goal by 70%. At the moment, the department, the President has tasked the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development to South Africa's anti-corruption architecture. As you know, at the moment, we have the police, within the police we have the Hawks, we have the National Prosecuting Authority, within the Prosecuting Authority we have the Independent Directorate focusing on corruption, we have the Special Investigating Unit, we have the Public Protector, and it's wonderful that we have so many institutions focusing, amongst others, on the issue of corruption. But the Zondo Commission recommended that we re-look at architecture and see how can we streamline it, how can we make it more effective. We want to secure a 90% conviction rate for our priority offences, and those would include commercial crime and serious organised crime. Then we will implement public sector reforms to professionalise the public sector, improve delivery, productivity and efficiency, instill discipline, ethics and integrity in the public sector, including in the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security cluster. Part of that renewal is also to digitize and to promote innovation in the public sector, including a more efficient way of improving ICT. I'm sure that the Minister will also speak a lot more about this because she has been at the vanguard, at the very forefront of ensuring that we de-link ourselves from the State Information Technology Agency, which is really, really holding us back. So many of the problems that I'm sure that you will be raising here today around the Master's Office and others, ultimately technology plays a big role in that. Another area which I think is particularly relevant for today's discussion is that at least 85 community advice officers will receive financial support to provide free legal advice and human rights education, extending access to justice across all 52 districts in our country. And I think the importance of this can't be underestimated. I think many of us come out of a history of activism and involvement in the human rights field where community advice officers played central roles in communities. It was a place where many community activists could come together, not just for legal matters, but also to support broader social struggles. Very, very important. Then, in terms of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommendations, the Department will finalize and implement regulations on community rehabilitation, housing assistance, medical support for TRC-identified victims. And I think there are a number of organizations present who have played a leading role, a commendably leading role in this field, and we look forward to engagement. Throughout the next 5 years, we'll expand our activities to deepen public participation, to improve service delivery, and to ensure inclusive decision-making. And I think today's event is just a signal of many, many yet to come. The Minister, within the probably 3 months or less that she's been in office, has really hit the ground, literally, running, and has made her presence felt, not just in the boardrooms, but she's visited masters' offices, jogged up 8 floors of steps because the electricity was off, visited magistrates' courts, visited masters' offices. So I think it's really indicative of an activist approach to justice. I'm moving to conclusion to say that the one thing that's of great concern to us is the ongoing reports of violations of human rights, of racism, of sexism, of homophobia, of xenophobia. And I think the latest, and I definitely don't want to single it out because there are so many others, but I think the very, very brutal assassination of Imam Mohsin Hendricks in the past 2 weeks is just indicative of the work that still lies ahead to ensure that we continue that struggle to make the reality of our constitution felt by all who live in South Africa. So this medium-term development plan prioritizes promoting awareness of constitutional rights and improving access to justice, particularly for vulnerable groups, so that we're all empowered to protect and defend our rights and to report discrimination and report any acts that undermine justice in this democracy. I would want to conclude just by doing something which I think we must really strive to normalize, along with the singing of our national anthem. And that is to read the preamble to our Constitution. We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustices of our past. We honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land. We respect those who have worked to build and develop our country. And we believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. We therefore, through our freely elected representatives, adopt this Constitution as the supreme law of the Republic, so as to heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. Lay the foundations for a democratic and open society in which government is based on the will of the people and every citizen is equally protected by law. Improve the quality of life of all citizens and free the potential of each person. And build a united and democratic South Africa, able to take its rightful place as a sovereign state in the family of nations. May God protect our people. Nkosi sikelele Afrika. Morena buluka sechaba sa Yesu. God seën Suid-Afrika. God bless South Africa. Mudzimu fatucheja uAfrika. Hosi katikisa Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Esteemed guests, I think we took from the Deputy Minister's speech that there are many commemorative activities that are due to happen this current financial year, or this year, and some of them is which he might not have spoken to, is also the 30th anniversary of the Constitution Hill, which set for the first time in 1995. So Con Hill is also celebrating 30 years. So thank you very much, and also for outlining the key priorities for the 7th administration and the direction that government is taking. Without any further ado, I will then hand over to our Minister, Honorable Mmamoloko Kubayi. Ma'am, take the podium.
Dumela, Sanbonan, Rishil, Nmacheron, Huye Mwore. Good morning. Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me take this opportunity first to acknowledge the presence of the Deputy Minister, Nell, acknowledge Professor Caitlin, Dean of the Faculty of Law, Advocate Mashabani, the Director General of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, panelists, leaders of various civil society organizations, distinguished guests. We are gathered here today because we are all interested in creating a just, equitable, and sustainable society. Given our apartheid past, which was characterized by a range of injustices and lack of access to justice for the majority, creating such a society requires a paradigm shift. The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa of 1996 is the framework and foundation upon which the transformation of law, state, society is anchored. Accordingly, the preamble of the Constitution proclaims that the new paradigm can only be created by establishing a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights, and improving the quality of life of all citizens of the Republic. Today's engagement is part of a collective introspection into the work of all of us that we have done over the years to advance the constitutional imperative of expanding access to justice for all, especially to the poor and the most vulnerable. Our quest to expand access to justice is based that says everyone is equal before the law and has the right to equal protection and the benefit of the law, and that equality includes the full and equal enjoyment of all rights and freedoms. It also goes on to highlight that everyone has an inherent dignity and the right to have their dignity respected and protected. These are very important values that all of us who are gathered here today recognize, that it requires capabilities of all of us, and in terms of the lived experiences, to be able to turn the situation where we have undesirable outcomes or experiences. We need men and women and them who are volunteers, many of them who are working in various organizations. And I say this because my first job as I graduated from university was in an NGO. So I understand fully what it requires and what it takes, the work that is done by NGOs. I fully understand the critical and crucial work that is done by CBOs and NGOs, especially under difficult conditions and most of the time not fully funded. And this work, and that's what has informed us gathering here, for us to engage, and I can assure you that this is just not a talk shop. And I say this up front because with my experience in my previous portfolio, where I convened a stakeholder meeting with civil society, people were skeptical to say this is a talk shop. And I can assure you, as I left with the portfolio of human settlements, they bears testimony of the work that we have done together with civil society, working together collaboratively. So I say this up front so that we can all understand. It will not take only the minister, it will not take only the deputy minister, it will not take the director general, it will not take government. It has to take all of us to work together to be able to achieve a successful partnership. All of us have to understand that we are going to work within parameters that we will agree upon, principles that we will agree upon, but most importantly, all of us having to play our role. And in that way, when we agree on partnerships and the principles of our partnerships, it is important for us to be able to observe them and adhere to them. As I said, we are all here because the Constitution as well imposes a duty on the state to respect, protect, promote, and fulfill the rights in the Bill of Rights. So as a state, we have responsibility. It is through collaborative work that this can be achieved. We can be able to see majority of South Africans being able to say the Bill of Rights is being respected, but also enjoying the rights that are enshrined in our Constitution. I want to emphasize that it is for this reason that we treasure and we have called to this meeting, that let's gather together, let's formulate a working relationship, let's build a partnership that will be sustainable, that will be accountable to each other. Again, I must say that today, the context will be us launching this Human Rights Month, as the DG and the DM said. We took a decision that we should not launch a Human Rights Day as just an event, but through a dialogue. A dialogue that reflects that 30 years we've been in this democracy, how far we have traveled, what are the lessons learned, what is it that we need to improve? What are the issues that as a society, as South Africa, we still have to deal with? We intentionally, again, decided to come here in Soweto, repurposing our dark history when this very township was created. If we can remember, Soweto was established on the 9th of February, 1955. 2,000 men, policemen, armed with guns, rifles, and knobgiris, forcefully moved the first batch of black families from Sophia Town to Meadowlands. This year marks 70 years since that fateful night, fateful day, and fateful year. Here we stand, 30 years later, celebrating our hard-earned democracy and who we are as a nation. Tenacious, resilient, and determined to fight oppression from Soweto to Palestine. Our country transitioned from a past that was cemented in divisions on the basis of race. The struggle for freedoms we enjoy today came at the loss of many lives. As we celebrate a significant 30-year milestone in our constitutional democracy, anchored on human rights, the month of March, now known as Human Rights Month, is an important occasion to reaffirm and recommit ourselves to striving towards our constitutional promise. Our Constitution encapsulates the vision of Freedom Charter, which was adopted 70 years ago, again in Soweto, which says, amongst others, that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, and that all shall be equal before the law. We are collectively striving towards the attainment of social justice that provides everyone with equal economic, political, and social rights and opportunities. We have, through our Constitution and legislative measures, taken the approach of social justice as a core value and principle, emphasis on securing the basic needs of all. Most notably has been the signing into law measures that seek to ensure equitable access to land, clean water, education, and medical care, amongst others. Our Constitution has set out the framework of our human rights realization discourse, and the Constitutional Court has been the pillar that has interpreted the core minimum of these provisions as set out in the Bill of Rights. Officially opened on the 14th February 1995, years since the inception of the Constitutional Court, whose current building, if we are to remember, at the Constitutional Hill, was partly constructed using the bricks from a demolished awaiting trial wing of the former number 4 prison. And those who understand the history will know what that prison meant. This was specifically by our forebears to understand that for us to be able to significantly show that we want to build a better South Africa, a South Africa that can be a pride of everyone, we needed to understand that the building blocks will be understanding our past, acknowledging the pain of the past, so that we can be able to heal and build a better future. Without acknowledging the pain of the past, sometimes people say it's 30 years of democracy, can you move on? When you put a plaster on a heel, on a wound, it doesn't heal. You've got to be able to open up and clean it up so that it can heal. We've had conversations over years about what has happened in this country. And each year, as we celebrate human rights, as we celebrate Freedom Day and Freedom Month, we reflect upon the steps that we have taken to understand whether we've been able to make that significant stride, that all South Africans, irrespective of their race, irrespective of their choice in terms of marriages, irrespective of their choice in terms of gender, irrespective of their choice in terms of where they are living, but also irrespective of their class, can safely and proudly say, I am a proud South African and this democracy works for me. It takes all of us, it will take all of us to have to work together. And that's why this gathering today, significantly, is one of those milestones that we say, let's not sit in our offices and reflect about the 30 years of our democracy within the justice system. Can we come together with civil society? What does the 30 years mean to you as civil society? What has been the journey that you have traveled with us alone in this 30, so that the history that we write of this 30 years democracy is not one-sided. When we write the story of 30 years of democracy, must not be from a perspective of the minister or a perspective of the department alone, but a perspective of all of us who have experienced the 30 years of democracy in various capacities in our society. I must say significant strides have been made in ensuring the culture of human rights. We can say today that the right of life is guaranteed with the abolition of death penalty. I know in society some of them who are dealing with GBVF are calling for this to come back. But there was a specific reason why this right was enshrined in our constitution, why a decision to do away with death penalty was there. It was precisely to say the right of life. But we can have a conversation about what needs to be done as we acknowledge that indeed GBVF is a pandemic in our country. Today, the state bears a constitutional duty to provide effective remedies against domestic violence. We've done our policies. We've set up institutions. And sometimes I think as a minister that they're not sufficient. We need to do more. Men and women in blue do their best, arresting perpetrators, creating Tutuzela centers, and being able to say women and children can't live in fear. And actually, even worse, the queer community is affected more because they get victimized, should not live in fear in the country of their birth. There's still more needs to be done, and we'll continue to work together in this area. The state bears the responsibility, for example, to provide rail services that is safe for commuters. Because sometimes when you look at infrastructure, we don't understand that some of this infrastructure, that's why there must be security and comfort. Whether you're providing houses, it's within the context of security and comfort. Whether you provide rail services, it must be within the context of security and comfort. There are measures that we are moving as the state to ensure that those are done. And that does not say there are no gaps. That does not significantly say there's still areas that we need to improve. But it's important for us to acknowledge what has been achieved. The law now provides for means whereby same-sex couples can enjoy the same status, entitlements, and responsibilities accorded to heterosexual couples through marriage, and employers may not discriminate against anyone on the basis of their HIV positive status. We don't reflect on these things because today they've become normal. But we've got to understand that it is through this democracy that we've attained these freedoms and these rights. That our equality is being guaranteed by the Constitution, And the state perpetually, continuously, is making efforts to ensure that we can be able to see this equality. Gender equality has been advanced for African women to inherit under the African customary law of intestate succession. And the appointment of customary institution of female chiefs is now permissible, which was never done. This is what we have achieved in the 30 years of democracy. In an eviction of residents from their homes, the state bears the duty to engage meaningfully with them about possible steps that can be taken to alleviate their homelessness. Again, steps that have been taken to protect dignity of South Africans. Core minimums have been set out in ensuring equitable access to health care, and many can say that's why the state today talks about NHI. And sometimes there's distortions in the public domain make people to wonder if indeed it is the right decision. Even those who have medical aid can share stories about how it is unaffordable to access quality health care in this country. And that's why NHI is the future and is necessary for all of us. Because those of us who have experienced, I just recently lost my mother, who was a cancer patient. If you look at the oncology costs, it drains you. You ask yourself, for somebody who's unemployed, to have treatment of cancer with those exorbitant costs, how do you survive? So NHI is necessary. It's fulfilling what the Constitution has been able to say, that there shall be quality of health care and access to health care for all. The state continues to ensure that minimum standards are met in ensuring that South Africans have access to shelter, have access to education, have access to water, and all other socio-economic rights. It is a conscious decision, and we have to continuously work together, but hold the state accountable in terms of its work. But also, we do our part in protecting, for example, these hard-earned rights, democracies, but our infrastructure as well. Our achievements over the years have not eradicated all challenges, as issues of unemployment, poverty, and crime continues to hamper greater progress in the realization of human rights, especially access to basic services, resulting in growing levels of inequality. The 30-year anniversary of South Africa's democracy has provided an opportunity to reflect on the progress made. In commemorating Human Rights Day 2025 and looking ahead to another 30 years, a call has been made for all of us as stakeholders to implement actions geared for deepening a culture of social justice and human rights, as this is our theme for 2025. It's what we have our citizens experience, our services and challenges that you as well as civil society, but our stakeholders are experiencing. And therefore, how do we work together to finding solutions in aiming at nurturing and strengthening our democracy, but also holding us accountable as we are expected to be held accountable. Let us dedicate this Human Rights Month to commemorating and honoring those who have lost their lives for the attainment of this freedom and human rights in our country, to promote the supremacy of the Constitution and the rule of law, while acknowledging the injustices of our past, to making a call for accelerated action towards the realization of social justice as the key promise of our constitutional democracy, and to promote social cohesion, fostering tolerance and respect for democracy and diversity. As I got to find a mechanism that makes it easier for us to be able to engage. Yes, we have committed with the TM that we would want to have a platform with stakeholders. So out of here, one of the issues that I would want to see is a platform that allows for an engagement continuously, not once off with the minister. That all the issues that we have been able to engage here and agree upon, we have an action list that we'll be able to follow up. And when we gather again, a report back must be given on what has been achieved against that action list. So that we do not say we are gathering every time, and therefore this is just a talk show. But more importantly, for me, as I say, it's that platform that I commit to twice a year, once with a smaller team that represents you, but fully of this nature annually, where we can come together. So a stakeholder team that you would have to agree yourselves that who will represent you, that will engage with the minister. That team will represent you to look at what we have agreed here, an action plan working together, but then together with that team that represents you, to have a day where we come back and report back annually on what we have agreed to. This is a format of institutionalization of our engagement, not at official levels, but at ministerial and executive political level. Because I do understand, and this is what we have agreed with the DM, that accountability and transparency and engagement has to start with us. We've got to show and lead the portfolio to be able to say where issues are stuck, we can be able to resolve them. And as I said, I come from NGO sector. And I'm one person that is always upfront and frank. Let us not start fighting about who represents us. I'm going to emphasize. Let's not say once we have agreed that these are the people that represent us, then we start writing letters, we do media statements that actually they are not representing us. These are some of the things that makes it difficult for government to have meaningful engagements with stakeholders. I'm talking from experience. And I'm saying it up front so that you do not become victims of your own deeds. Because tomorrow when you do not become cohesive, when you are not speaking in one voice, it gives an excuse for government not to engage with you. Because they will say that you are divided. We don't know who to talk to. So assist us. Assist me as the minister so that I can hold even my organization, my institution, my department, and the officials of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development accountable by also collaborating with us properly, cooperating properly, but being able to be not to disrupt what would have started from today. That's my appeal to you. I hope I would not come back in the next engagement and report that the problem we had was many voices and the divisions, and the sit-ins that this one must be removed. You can hear, I know the experience. I've been there. So I'm appealing, let's not do that. Because we must remember that we do not do this work for ourselves. We have a great responsibility for the future generation. We have a responsibility to do everything in our powers to sustain human rights culture in our country, guided by the foundation laid by those who lost their lives to strive for a society free from discrimination and achievement of social justice. Today, let's engage honestly within the bounds of respect, but being robust and making sure that we are able to tangibly say, this is what needs to happen. I will be sitting throughout the day with you, listening to all the engagements, and I'm looking forward to hearing the suggestion, feedback on how our services are, but how we can improve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Esteemed guests, I think I won't repeat what Minister has said. She nicely summarized some of the gains of democracy and freedom, and the call for action, I think, in terms of why are we here today, to collaborate, to work together with government, to make sure that as different sectors, we set out our priorities and we work towards attaining those together with the Department of Justice, So I think this brings us to the end of this first session. As we usher Deputy Minister and Minister to their chairs, I'm going to, and the DG, I'm going to request that Advocate Said come to the podium to facilitate the first panel discussion, and she will then outline, introduce the members of the panel and provide direction in that regard. Thank you. There's a request for a white Mercedes-Benz registration number JL90ZB GP, JL90ZB GP, to be the owner if they can just meet security outside. Thank you.
Good morning. Dumilang. Sangbonani. Assalamu alaikum. It gives me great pleasure to moderate this session. And as I do, I want to just pick up that this morning we took a walk around at the Justice Ismail Mohammed Center, and what I was reminded of when he took his position as the first Chief Justice at the time, the first black Chief Justice, was that he said on the adoption of our Constitution, and it's very pertinent to remind us of this as we launch the Human Rights Month in the 30 years that passed of our constitutional democracy, is that the Constitution is a bibliography of a nation, and that really is reflected in all of the principles of our Constitution. And I think very, very clearly, we are now beginning to write the chapters. We certainly have established the legal framework, and this opportunity today is really for us to, as we enter our 40th year, write the next chapter of how do we live this Constitution, what are the challenges, and where do we still have to improve whilst we've celebrated all that we've put into place. So I have, as we start this discussion today, which is themed for the rest of the month and this year, deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. So as I do that, it gives me great pleasure to call on Commissioner Madlingozi from the South African Human Rights Commission and to come to the podium. I also then call on Dr. Busiwani Martins from the Center for Restorative Justice, Ms. Buthelezi. I haven't seen her this morning. There she is, who is the Executive Director of Community Advice Offices. And I lastly am going to, but not least, going to call on Dr. Zayed Kimi from the Foundation for Human Rights. As we indicated a bit earlier, we've collapsed the last session, and some of our panelists will join us in this session. So I'm going to ask a round of questions whilst the colleagues move the podium. But as I do, and one of the points I wanted to make, I see we don't have a moving mic, so I'll stand here. One of the points I wanted to make is many people know that the Chief Justice was one of the few and first of the lawyers, black lawyers, to be admitted to the bar. But as we go into the section which deals with, and many of the colleagues here, sorry that my back is to you, many of the colleagues here have worked in the advice office community, and not many know that our very first lawyer in the country to be admitted to the bar was Mmamoloko. And many of us who started our careers as law students in the early 80s, working in community advice offices, would also know that we did a whole lot more, especially with the Bush Telegraph that we had back then, but it was the first point of call for legal advice and legal services. And it was Mmamoloko who had inspired providing that kind of legal information and assistance. And interestingly, and sort of quite symbolically, his mortal remains was brought back to South Africa last year. So for those of you who are in the community advice offices, one of the questions I wanted to raise with you is, we've come through 30 years of democracy. We are always hearing that we have a good constitution, but what does that mean for me? So when it comes to constitutional literacy, how much more do we have to do, especially as the branch that deals with constitutional development? Is it just about literacy? Are we sufficiently equipped to participate in this democracy and to demand the kind of services that we want? So Dr. Martins, with your experience of working especially in the KZN area, but also around the country on women and human rights and justice issues, what has been your experience? Please come through to the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone, and all protocol observed. Yes. Okay. I'll go directly to the question and provide the answer based on my experience. What I can say is that there are so many paths of accessing justice, but there is only one path that people know about, which is access to justice through courts, through the police. There's been another path where people can access to justice. We've always had an institution of traditional justice. They've been dispensing justice, they've been providing remedies and solution for the human rights violation that the people have been experiencing. And there's been, again, the institution of community advice offices. That dates back, before we got our democracy. And all these paths, we can sum them up to say these are community-based justice institutions. So they've been doing a great job working alongside government to make sure that people access justice that meet their legal needs. I think I will stop there.
There we are. So Dr. Buthelezi, any additions to that? Do you agree? Do you disagree? But also, what are the other solutions? And do we need to just intensify the support in terms of resources? Is it a question of technical know-how? And also, do we need to demystify rather issues and principles in the Constitution? How do we get more involved in addressing some of the processes, some of the complaints that we get at not just advice offices, but across the justice system?
Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you for the promotion. I am not Dr. Buthelezi. My name is Tsenolo. I am Mrs. Buthelezi, though, and thank you very much for this opportunity that the Minister, the Deputy Minister, and the DG has provided. I think this is a refreshing move from the department to engage with civil society